Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Cafe. It's fabulous to have you here with us today. Hi, if you don't know me and you are new here, welcome. My name is Innocent Berger. I host the Performance Cafe every week, and here we come together to find out how do we improve performance in a way that actually works for us and for our employees. Base a lot of our stuff on like positive psychology and stuff like that. So today we have, I think, a very exciting topic: how a coach can help when I hate myself. The reason I ask this is because my only pet peeve about coaching, and I do a lot of it, right, is when people go, I would have spoken to you sooner, but I was feeling so bad. Coaches are not a place where you have to pitch up and look fabulous. We're not like physiotherapists, right? Like, you're going to get in here. We're going to do the work. We don't actually care what you look like. You can come in your sweats. It's all good. Sneakers, badly done hair. It's all good. The reason I say this is because what happens is that when we feel bad, and it's human, right? We all do this. We draw into ourselves. No matter how extroverted we are, at some point we draw into ourselves and we push people away. Now, the reason that we do this, if anyone's ever heard me talk before, I love going back to our biology. Our limbic system, it goes into fight, flight, or fight mode. So either it freezes, right? It goes into fight, it freezes, and it just sits there and waits for what's next. Or we flee the danger. And instead of going towards our tribe, we actually pull away because we don't want to look broken. We don't want to look like a failure. We don't want to look like we don't know where the best roots and vegetables are together for the cave and for the tribe. We don't want to be that person others cannot rely on. And now we go, wow, I can't even rely on myself. How can I even be around other people? I'm worthless. I have no value. Okay. I must tell you, a couple of months ago, I had quite a riveting session with a therapist, and my therapist had moved to another country, so I had to work with a new one. And I was having one of those, oh, woe is me moments, and I was feeling down in the dumps, and I was really battling to get over grieving about my father. And then it was like a whole lot of other stuff came out. And I also said, you know, this thing about I have no value. And she said to me, do you have pets? And I said to her, yes, I have pets. Let me show you. Pets. And not only do I have pets, but I'm one of those mothers. I can actually show you my pets right there. They are my two dogs. And she goes, how useful are they? And I go, oh, wait, let me tell you this. They cost a ton to feed. They're incredibly expensive because when they hurt, they have to go to the vet and then get the best medical care that I can possibly afford or else. And then, they just like, they're like forever in my space. And I can never just like, never have calm and quiet because they're quite busy little beasts. And she said to me, do you love them? And I went, wouldn't change them for the world. She says, and do they have value? It's like the Netflix tune, you know, when you start the Netflix and go, that went through me. And I went, oh, I treat my dogs better than I treat myself. It was quite a moment. So when it comes to self-hate, something about it, because we don't all live there. We go there sometimes. But there are a couple of things that make us predisposed to it. I've been doing a lot of looking at inner child work. And so what we see is that a lot of people, their triggers in life in general come from what happened in the first sort of couple of years of their life. A lot of psychologists sort of believed that the personality really forms in the first 6 to 7 years of life. And after that, we're fairly stagnant. That's no longer true. We're not stagnant. Neurology looking into, I've lost the word, because I do. Let me try that again. Because when we take a look at people who study the brain, they teach us about brain plasticity and that our brain continues to form. So while we can change the forming of our brain, while we can change things later on in life, what does stay true is the first couple of years of our life can sometimes lead to a couple of the triggers that we have later. And it's not big T trauma, it's little T trauma. So it's day-to-day kind of stuff that happens, like, our older sibling gets married and moves away when you're very young, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't have to be like huge and people want to damage you. So what happens is when we establish those triggers when we are young, when we get older, when we are triggered and we cannot deal with it, then we're in a situation where we can go back and look, what is that trigger? But that trigger is also going to be what then turns into self-hate. Did you see when we were little and we learned those first things in life? What happened was that we laid down a foundation for how we believe the plan of life is. And then when people don't play to that plan, that's when we get triggered. And when we can't play to that plan, we get even more triggered. So if I cannot help you at every turn, then I'm not good enough. If I don't sacrifice myself, I'm not good enough, right? So from that perspective, when we take a look at self-hate, a lot of it comes from when we were younger and events in our lives, trauma, whatever the case may be. So what happens is one would think we suffer from trauma, heal from it, because hopefully we get the necessary assistance. Sometimes we don't know that we were traumatized because it was just what life was. But we hope that as we grow through life, we learn to heal ourselves. But actually we don't. What we do is we manifest this belief based on what happened, and then we keep on triggering ourselves because of this. And that's where self-loathing comes in. Now, any of you who have watched the channel before know that I have a best friend. His name is called Tony. Tony's not really my best friend. He's my inner critic, but he spends a heck of a lot of time in my head. And what I've learned to do is I will think of something, like I can be a little bit random abstract, as someone once called it. This morning I did something and I went, oh, Innocent, now you're going to the car's locked, you've got to go and get the keys in anyway. Yeah, that's Tony. That's, how stupid can you be? Obviously, you're now making yourself walk a second time. Okay, I'm not that unfit and my house is not that big. It really wasn't worth it. And I went, okay, that's me. I get a little bit distracted sometimes. And I turned around and I went and I fetched the key and I did what I needed to and all was well. And that kind of self-talk is what manifests in our head and keeps on playing like this broken record the whole time. And that is where some of our self-hatred comes from. Because what happens is, if the only person in your life that you're speaking to about your troubles is yourself, you get caught up in the situation where you are talking to your identical. There's no fresh perspective. Have you ever gone and said to someone, oh, you're not going to believe what I just did? And this person bursts out laughing and says, you know, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Why? Because their perspective is different. Because they see some things as not that serious. Because they see that, you know, you made an honest mistake in the moment. It's more of an embarrassment, right? And so when, I love it, with my name, people love saying it wrong. And so when someone says my name wrong, I sometimes actually don't even realize it anymore. I get the general gist. Someone's looking at me, talking to me and saying anything that sounds like my name. So I respond, right? They're not trying to be rude. They're not trying to be nasty. It honestly was just a case of they saw it as they read it. So that E, people want to put Innocente on. Some people read the Innocent, drop the E, call me Innocent, which is actually how you say my name. So by pronouncing it incorrectly, they're doing it right. No harm, no foul. That's embarrassment. It's something like when they come to me and they go, sorry, then I'm like, oh, let me tell you the worst ways people have pronounced it, right? That's embarrassment. But what happens is that little voice in our head, that self-talk, that can flick over. And what it becomes is either an expression of shame or guilt. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time on this because these were things that really, until I read Brene Brown's book, Atlas, I think it's Atlas of the Heart, Atlas of the Soul. I forget the name. Sorry, that's so bad of me. Until I read her book, I actually had a very distorted view of those two concepts, which for someone who studied psychology and is now a coach, one would think I'd had a better grasp. But, you know, here we go, which is why I'm sharing the learning. Shame is I am wrong. I am not worthy. I have no value. I am broken. I am not good enough. So, if we take that kind of thinking and we hear it often enough, oh, Innocent, you're so distracted. Oh, Innocent, you never get anything done. Oh, Innocent, oh, Innocent, oh, Innocent. What are you going to do? You're going to believe. Who are you believing? The inner voice that you're programming by your speaking. So you create this continuous feedback loop of you and your shame. The problem with shame is that shame lets us draw back. Because if I'm so bad, if my core is so icky, see that it's worthless, that I have no function, that's shame. I best withdraw because I'm going to hurt someone, right? It's like, just lock me up now. With guilt, it's very interesting, and I want you to remind you, before I start on guilt, I want to remind you how many times you have said, or how many times you've heard someone say, my mother or my girlfriend or my wife or my husband guilted me into it. The difference between shame and guilt is that guilt is external and it pushes us to resolution. I feel guilty. I feel shameful, I withdraw. I feel guilty, I go, whoa, I better fix that. Oh, that was awkward. I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to, what have I done? It leads to things like confessing or acknowledging at least something was wrong, or opening up and saying, hey, can we have a discussion about this? Because that definitely didn't go as I wanted it to. And I realized I was entirely wrong. I'd like to retry that whole conversation again. So what happens is when people are stuck between guilt that they haven't yet moved into expressing and ashamedness, the problem here is that when we play the record in our own heads to ourselves the whole time, we believe more of the same, and it's difficult to move forward. But the moment that we involve someone else, as you guys would have heard me say before so I just want to grab my notes because there are a couple of pointers I want to make sure I hit perfectly for you. So one of the things that happens is that when we are talking to ourselves, and you would have heard me say this, we sort of, when ourselves speak is in the abstract, right? Which side's right side? Right side is this side. Okay, guys, I don't know which way my screen is. Right side is this side. So when I'm thinking how bad I am, when Tony and I are having a party, we're on the right-hand side of my brain. The moment I have to go to my therapist and tell her how bad I am, I've got to move the abstract concept to the left-hand side of my brain, where my language faculties take the abstract concept and make it concrete in language. Now, I can't actually tell the therapist everything that's in the abstract because it's abstract. And as soon as I start making sense of it, I have to add logic to those emotions. And in adding logic to that emotions and by telling someone, I am having to express this and then find a way to make it meaningful to someone else, help them understand it, apologies, and then hear their feedback or perspective about it. So firstly, there's a couple of ways that it works. So there's about 5 ways, right? Firstly, here's someone that I'm talking to that I'm trusting with the story, with all of the story. Not the bits of the story that are fine for me, not the bits of the stories that I like. No, the bits of the stories that we find this person's here to help me. So I've got to make it as understandable to them, no matter how crazy my crazy seems right now, right? Next, remember, I'm speaking to a fellow human, and I was having a lovely conversation with someone this morning who said that, as coaches, we constantly grow and develop ourselves. But the more we grow and develop ourselves, the more we can support other people in their growing and development because it makes us so relatable. Me sitting here telling you about all the nonsense I've gotten up to my life on this channel is exactly that point. It's like I've probably done this and I've been there, right? I've made that mistake. I've done that crazy. And it's because I need to grow that I know I can help others grow. So this is a fellow human. They're totally relatable. The other thing is, it stops the rumination. A lot of productivity people, there was a guy, I think he wrote a book, GTD, Getting Things Done. He said, write your to-do list down because if you keep it in your head's going to keep playing it to make sure you don't forget it. Same thing happens. That's why we tell you to journal. Get that abstract concept verbally to someone else. And all of a sudden, your mind goes, oh, thank heaven someone's holding on to that for me. What's the next thing we can focus on? Right. So as long as it's in our head and not outside of our bodies, it doesn't help. And the moment we give it to that person who is relatable, who we can trust, well, they can do a reality check, right? They can go, do you know, actually, being 15 minutes late for a meeting every once in a while is not the end of the world. You don't have to, don't have to be that worried about yourself. And then she'll go something like, because we say this as well, when last was someone late for a meeting with you? When last did someone else put you in the position that you're so fretful about now? When last did someone mouth off at you and you know the message and the energy was not for you? You just happened to be the casualty in that moment. Doesn't make it fair. But the reality check helps sort out what Tony wants you to believe from what is actually more reasonable and gives you something really practical to action. Because you see, once we get away and we get into that place where we start actioning, we're moving from shame to guilt. But through guilt and resolving issues comes healing. And that is the 5 ways that a coach can help you in order to clarify what's going on in your head and help you to get to the action. And I just want to close the loop again. The reason I'm saying this is don't wait until you understand the plan to ask someone to help you with a plan. Pitch up in your worst, darkest, dirtiest moments. That's what we're there for. We've had them ourselves and we have a lot of compassion for it.